For those that hear this and say to themselves, well, if Satan wasn't created good, then how was he created, and how does that square and fit with my understanding of a good God? Is there anything you want to say to those people?
Yeah, there is. So the only other reasonable alternative to being created good and falling is that he was created evil. And the thing that will
Meaning
drive,
Satan. Satan was created
meaning
evil.
Satan
Yeah.
was created evil.
Yeah.
That is going to drive any human being absolutely crazy if they believe in a God of love and a God that is good.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we have to go back to what does the Bible say, not our human understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I could quickly go over like 4 scriptures that indicate that he is created evil.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can pull it up on the screen.
Yeah, I can do that.
Isaiah 45:7.
Yep. I form light and create darkness. Can you see that, Rich?
Yes, and I make well-being and I create calamity. I am the Lord who does all these things. So this is where even the best interpretations of the Bible, we can be influenced by our humanity. And calamity in the Hebrew means evil. I make well-being and I create evil. If you go back to Genesis, where I think it's Genesis 2, where God commands Adam to not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
It's the same word, raw.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah.
And so it says it right here in 45:7. I make well-being and I create evil.
Yeah.
And again, we probably need to have another podcast on how can a good God create evil. But then go to Isaiah 54:16. Behold, I have created the smith who blows the fire of coals and produces a weapon for its purpose. I have also created the ravager to destroy. That in the Hebrew, let's get real. It means I have created the destroyer to destroy. Now, the thing that gives me hope in this idea is that he produces a weapon for its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
He has created evil for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And the analogy I think of is how great would Muhammad Ali have been without Joe Frazier? He had an he had an opponent to overcome. He was great in himself, and yet his greatness was fully manifest by overcoming an opponent.
Yeah.
Satan is our opponent. Evil is our opponent. And I think it says where does it say? And I think it's in 1 John. It says, you young ones.
You have overcome the evil one. Young men, you're strong and you've overcome the evil one.
Thank you. Thank you. You have overcome the evil one. That's one of our jobs. We need to deny the flesh, resist temptation, and overcome the evil one.
Yeah.
And that's when we become fathers. That's when we step into the fullness of our maturity. So Satan, and then you take a look at the book of Job, and that's a perfect place where there's an application where Satan had a purpose. Evil had a purpose to bring forth Job from a man who feared God out of pure fear and a man who had a revelation of God's love and followed him, like John Bevere says, that he had the fear of never wanting to be ever separated from him again. And he received a double portion. So again, in the midst of that, Satan served a purpose. Job had to overcome the most overwhelming circumstances in his life to stay loyal to the Lord. And again, you go back to Abraham offering up Isaac. So to me, that's where evil actually does have a purpose.
Yeah. God tested Abraham. That's what it says in the beginning of that chapter.
Yes.
Yeah. Rich, I'm not trying to prove your point at all. In fact, I'd like to say as a disclaimer, the opinions of the guests on this program are their own and are not necessarily conducive to the opinions and views of That You May Know Him Ministries. But at the end of this series, I will be giving my own take on all of this, including on Rich's view of Adam. But I have to say, without going too far on a weave here before we end the episode, You probably know this. I'm not 100% sure. I think you do. The Hebrew word Satan is not a name. It's a title. It's always accompanied with a definite article, ha-Satan. He is, in the Old Testament, the Satan, which means the adversary. He becomes a being who is identified by the name Satan, which is actually his title in the New Testament, when in Greek, they start referring to him as Satan as if it's his name. It was never his name all throughout the Old Testament. It was his title. He literally is the adversary. That's the picture that we see of him in Job, which is the most robust picture we have of him in the Old Testament. He is coming to be an opponent to God and to God's purposes. And when people talk about him as the accuser, he's referred to as the accuser of the brethren in the New Testament, but in Job, he's not only the accuser of Job, more importantly than that, he is the accuser of God. He's the one who looks at God and says,
right.
Have you really created beings who love you? Are you really capable of creating a people for your own possession, or do they only love you because you bless them? Which is much more fitting of, I think, the whole Bible picture. I think people need to start thinking that way when we think about this adversary. He's not just opposing us, he's opposing God and God's purposes.
That's right.
To the nth degree.
Thank you. I think that validates that God can still be good and create evil. And in the New Testament, just two scriptures is John 8:44, where it says that Satan is the father, or the devil is the father of lies, and he has sinned from the beginning. And so
I was thinking about that when you were talking. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth.
Yeah, you have to ask the question, what's the beginning he's talking about? And the only logical conclusion I can come up to is at the beginning of Satan.
Yeah.
The beginning of the murderer. And he's been a murderer from the beginning, from his very creation. And again, 1 John 3:18, I think, says the same thing. The devil has sinned from the beginning. So again, it goes back to the origin. So I just want to give that to the people something to think about, that we are called to oppose the evil one. We're called to do the warfare, but do the warfare I think it's in Ephesians 6, where it talks about doing warfare. And it says to stand firm. Yeah, putting on the armor of God, and it doesn't say rail against Satan. It says stand firm. And so a lot of times, stand firm until destruction passes by. Don't give up on your faith. That's the primary goal of evil, is for you to give up your faith.
Right.
And if we put on the whole armor of God, we're basically clothing ourselves in Christ and hiding in him and saying, nothing that I know about Christ no one or nothing is going to be able to distract me or dissuade me from what I know about Christ.
Right.
And that's a lot of what our walk with God is. I mean, we're supposed to walk in our purpose. We're supposed to live out our God-given identity and walk in our purpose. And fulfill the purposes of God for us. But we have an adversary who's going to oppose us.
Right. Thanks for watching. My name's Blake, and over the past 20 years, I've been a missionary, a pastor, and a Bible college and seminary professor. During that entire time, I've been teaching the Bible. And if you want more Bible content to come your way, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like this video. And also, check out this video right here.